Returning officers invalidate 12 pro-democracy nominees for the upcoming LegCo polls. A new single-day high of 149 COVID-19 cases in Hong Kong. And the government will allow daytime dining-in services at restaurants starting tomorrow.
Good evening and welcome. Hong Kong reported 149 new COVID-19 cases today. All but 4 are locally acquired infections.
This marks another single-day high of cases, bringing the city's tally to 3,151. Sharon Tang reports.
Among the 145 locally transmitted cases, 84 are linked to previous infection clusters. Among them, 2 residents of Cornwall Elderly's home in Tuen Mun and King Fuk Home in Cheung Sha Wan, respectively. 1 more cleaner at Hong Kong Market, as well as 2 more workers at Shung Shui Slaughterhouse, have come down with the virus. And 1 more staff member of Metro Broadcast Corporation has preliminary tested positive. 6 other employees of the radio station were confirmed infected earlier. Meanwhile, multiple cases have emerged at different hospitals. 4 supporting staff members of Princess Margaret Hospital, who initially tested positive for the virus yesterday, have now been confirmed with COVID-19. 4 patients, including a 4-year-old boy at Queen Elizabeth Hospital, North District Hospital and Caritas Medical Center, have also initially tested positive for the virus. Most alarmingly, some of these patients were admitted to hospitals not because they were showing COVID-19 related symptoms.
No matter how stringent or vigilant, we are trying to screen those asymptomatic populations. Inevitably, then we may admit some patients that are asymptomatic into the general medical ward.
To enhance surveillance, the hospital authority said screening had already been extended to high-risk groups such as taxi drivers and restaurant workers. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
The government is reversing its round-the-clock ban on restaurant dining just 2 days after implementing the new rule.
The U-turn means eateries will again be allowed to serve breakfast and lunch tomorrow, but with stricter rules. Naomi Harilela experienced the ban with some people while it was still in place.
Today was the second day of the full dine-in ban at restaurants. People took to the streets in the heat, finding any seat to enjoy their meal. For some, this meant a roadside curb or a park bench.
I feel so inconvenient. Yeah, we can't lunch outside, always inside.
However, community centers and churches were open for people to take refuge from the blazing sun. Public health expert David Hoy called for the reinstatement of dining services after previously supporting the government's ban.
In this sort of hot weather, it would not be advisable to ban the restaurants so that people can only eat outside. I think the government should make some amendment to allow the restaurants to serve up to 2 persons per table, and you would still separate the tables at a safety distance.
Later in the afternoon, the government announced changes to the ban. Starting tomorrow, restaurants will once again be allowed to provide dine-in services from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m.
After the implementation of this new measure, the government realized the inconvenience and difficulty faced by people who has to go to work and then they cannot find a proper place to eat. So we respond to this immediately and think we have to modify the measure as soon as possible.
However, tables will have to remain 1.5 meters apart, while the number of people at a table is restricted to 2. In addition, each eatery can only be at 50% capacity. Naomi Harlila, TVB News.
A new COVID-19 treatment center at Asia World Expo is expected to be up and running within the next 72 hours.
With the new facility in place, a hospital authority is hoping it will free up hospital beds for the seriously ill. Natalie Kynes has more.
This hall at Asia World Expo can house up to 500 people who test positive for COVID-19. It has been set up for patients aged between 18 and 60 who are not in need of hospital care. People who test positive for the coronavirus will be triaged into 3 categories. Those who are stable and asymptomatic will be sent to Layumun Park and Holiday Village. Patients with a fever but no serious conditions will stay at Asia World Expo. And those in critical condition will be sent straight to the hospital. Each resident at Asia World Expo will be given a partitioned room with access to Wi-Fi and electrical plugs. There will also be common areas, a drug dispensary and blood testing facilities. If patients here have antibodies or test negative twice, they can be discharged. Officials say cross-infection is not a concern, even though patients will share 31 toilets and 5 showers.
As for the cross-infection in the toilet facility, I don't think it is a major problem, since all the patients in the Asia World Expo have the same diagnosis.
14 doctors will be transferred from public hospitals to work at the facility.
You can have more patients under one doctor's care because the patients are all very stable, there are no symptoms. If you compare to that in hospitals, most patients are having fever and they are actually on medications and they are relatively sick compared to those in the expo.
Patients will also have access to consultations and mental health care via telephone. The hospital authority admits the 500 beds in the community treatment facility will fill up quickly. They are already thinking of expanding capacity by redeploying more doctors from the public healthcare system, opening up a second hall in Asia World Expo, and retrofitting other hospital wards. Natalie Kynes, TVB News.
In other news, 12 pro-democracy nominees for the upcoming Legislative Council polls have been barred from running in the election. Returning officers have invalidated their nominations for their political stances.
This amid rumors that the government will be delaying the polls by a year due to virus concerns. Kaina Chu tells us more.
Election dreams have been dashed for a dozen of opposition hopefuls.
After this very naked attempt to weed out any dissenting voice from the Legislative Council, we have no illusion that the Central People's Government and the Hong Kong SAR government would honor their promises under the Sino-British Joint Declaration and the Basic Law.
Since July 18th, the Registration and Electoral Office has received more than 130 nominations for the 2020 Legislative Council general election. While nominations are scheduled to close tomorrow, authorities have already ousted almost 10% of nominees for their political stances. They include 4 incumbent pan-democratic lawmakers, Dennis Kwok, Alvin Yeung, Kwok Ka-ki, and Kenneth Leung. Also another Civic Party nominee, Eastern District Council member Cheng Tak-hong. Returning officers also invalidated the eligibility of localist and independent nominees contesting for seats in the geographical constituency. They are activists Tiffany Yoon, Fergus Leung, Alvin Chang, and Joshua Wong. They're joined by Ventus Lau and Gwyneth Ho, who had both vied for spots representing New Territories East. Lester Shum, whose plan to bag a district council surface seat, has been shattered as well. Endorsing the decision, the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau said the decision hinged upon whether aspiring candidates met provisions stipulated under the Legislative Council Ordinance by upholding the Basic Law and swearing allegiance to the SAR.
When the National Security Law was passed, I said that one country, two system is finished. Today, we are seeing the results of the relentless oppression that this regime is starting.
Kaina Chu, TVB News.
Mainland authorities have reported 102 locally transmitted cases, with 96 from Xinjiang. Another 5 are from Dalian City in Liaoning Province. The city has recorded nearly 60 cases in the latest outbreak. More than half of the patients are employees of a seafood company. A mainland epidemiologist believes the spike in Dalian was caused by contaminated seafood imported from abroad. As for the city of Urumqi in Xinjiang, authorities have locked down some residential neighborhoods restricted public transit and ordered widespread testing.
Coronavirus infections are also spiking in Japan, which reported a record 1,264 new cases Wednesday. Tokyo also set a new daily mark, registering 367 infections today. The Japanese capital is planning to shorten operating hours for restaurants and karaoke parlors to tackle the spike. The surge comes a week after the government launched a national travel campaign to revive the battered tourism industry. Elsewhere in Asia, Vietnam has seen an outbreak spread to 6 cities and provinces in 6 days, all linked to a cluster in Da Nang. The capital of Hanoi has now banned big gatherings and ordered bars closed. After more than 3 months without any infections, Vietnam has had 42 new cases in the past week. Australia's hotspot of Victoria will now make masks compulsory statewide after a record 723 new cases today. Face coverings have been compulsory in the state capital, Melbourne, for a week. Australia's second largest city is also halfway through a 6-week lockdown, which could be extended. Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards have allegedly fired ballistic missiles from underground for the first time. Footage aired by a national broadcaster shows clouds of dust before the missiles streak into the sky. The military drill in the Gulf began on the 28th. It comes at a time of high tension between Tehran and Washington. The U.S. military said the drill caused 2 bases in the region with American troops to go on heightened alert. The exact location where Vincent van Gogh produced his final painting, Tree Roots, has been discovered in a rural lane near the French capital, Paris. Wouter van der Veen, scientific director of the Van Gogh Institute of France, made the breakthrough. He realized the whereabouts of the painter's final picture, and the tree roots in question were depicted in an old postcard, which handily listed the name of the village Auvergervoise. Experts claim the site's discovery will enable further study of the artist's mental health before his death. Van Gogh shot himself in the chest in 1890 after working all day on the painting, which now hangs in the Amsterdam Museum. The abstract style of Tree Roots signified a departure from Van Gogh's previous works, perhaps hinting that he was preparing to become more experimental on canvas had his life not ended prematurely. That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Good night.